Welcome to the Mason-Dixon Line of Scrimmage Tournament Breakdown. We are at the Midwest bracket. We're going to give you our picks and a little bit of analysis. Cole starts off.
All right, at the top of this bracket, you have Wichita State coming in with a 34-0 record. I think it's the first team to do that since UNLV in '91. So pretty impressive season for the Shockers. They'll be taking on number 16 seed Cal Poly or Texas Southern. I like the Shockers in this one to move on to the next round. In your 8-9 matchup, you have the Kentucky Wildcats against the Kansas State Wildcats. Kentucky, I feel like, hit a different gear last weekend with whatever the tweak might have been that Coach John Calipari entered into the system. So I look to see the Wildcats advance. Jonathan, how do you see these first two games going?
Obviously, I got Wichita State over the winner of the playing game in the 1-16 matchup. Like you said, Wildcats versus Wildcats. I like the Kentucky Wildcats in this one. So that'll pit Wichita State against Kentucky in the second round. But let's move on to the next pod. St. Louis versus the winner of NC State and Xavier. I like NC State to win the playing game, and I also like them to beat St. Louis and advance on to the round of 32. Louisville and Manhattan. I like the way Louisville's playing. I think they're the hottest team in the country, and I like them to advance. Who you got in those two games?
I'm kind of along the same lines with you. I look to see NC State beat Xavier in the play-in game. I look to see NC State beat St. Louis and move on to the next round. Then, of course, the Louisville-Manhattan game. You have the teacher-student rivalry with Rick Pitino and Steve Masiello. Masiello played for Kentucky on one of their national championship teams back in the 90s. And then Masiello also coached under Pitino at Louisville. But I look to see the Cardinals advance in this one because I'm like you. I think they're playing some pretty good ball right now, which moves us on to the next set of games with UMass and the winner of Iowa and Tennessee. I like the Volunteers in this one. I think they've had the potential to be a top 25 team all year. Early on, they kind of struggled, but the last couple of weeks, they've really started clicking. And I look to see them beat Iowa. I also look to see them beat UMass and advance onto that next round where Duke and Mercer will play each other in the next game with your 3-14 matchup. I look to see Duke advance in this one. How do you see these two games going?
I have Tennessee advancing in the playing game on Wednesday night against Iowa, and I also like them over UMass in that first-round matchup to set up Tennessee and Duke, as I have them over Mercer. Duke's just too powerful with a three-point shot. Jabari Parker, I just don't see any way Mercer's going to upset them this time. Last two games of this first round, Texas and Arizona State. I'm sticking with the Pac-12, and I'm sticking with Arizona State to upset Texas. And then Michigan over Wofford in the 2-15 matchup. Who do you have in those two?
I'm kind of right there with you again on that one. I see I have Texas beating Arizona State. I think you had Arizona State winning. But I look to see Texas win that one. I think it'll be a close game, but I look to see them win maybe in the last few minutes of the ball game. And then with the 2 seed Michigan against 15 Wofford, I think it'll be a pretty easy win for Michigan, and I look to see them advance, which moves us on to the next round, the round of 32, where I've got Wichita State, the Shockers, playing the Kentucky Wildcats. You had Kentucky entering the season with some people who thought they had a chance to go 40-0. That's turned out to be a disastrous,
Just put it this way, those T-shirts didn't sell, the 48.
Yeah, the 48, which that was a Louisville fan who created those, so we'll go from there. But regardless, Kentucky didn't even come close to going 40-0. Wichita State, you still have them have a quest to go 40-0. So that should be, I can see the headlines now with that one. But with this one, I look to see the unblemished record of Wichita State end here, and I look to see the Kentucky Wildcats move on to the Sweet 16. Which moves us on to the next game with NC State and Louisville. With my picks, again, I think NC State will play with them for probably the first half, maybe part of the second half, but I look to see Louisville pull it away because I think they're playing some really good ball right here. So who do you have in these two games?
I'm going to start where you left off, and I have Louisville and NC State in that matchup too. T.J. Warren, he's one of the best players in the country, but I just don't see NC State beating Louisville, as I think they are playing better than anybody in the country right now. And you have the undefeated Wichita State. You have the Kentucky Wildcats. Who's going to win that matchup? Whoa, C-A-T-S, Cats. That's
I like it, Ho. I like
I
it.
have the Cats advancing in this to go to the Sweet 16 to play Louisville. And my question is, can the state of Kentucky survive that matchup?
There will be a lot of fingernail biting, I think, going on that weekend, that Friday night in Indianapolis, and it will be a packed house going into that one. Moving on down to the next two games between Duke and Tennessee, who I have in those next two games. I think Tennessee will give Duke all they want. I think the post presence with Jarnell Stokes and Jerron Mayman, I think, will give Tennessee an advantage down there. If Tennessee can hit some shots, they've got a possibility of upsetting Duke. But I think Duke may be a little too talented for them right now, so I think Duke will advance there. And then with Michigan and Texas, I think Michigan's been pretty hot here lately. So I look to see them beat Texas and move on to the Elite Eight. Who do you have in these two games?
I also had Tennessee and Duke in that matchup. I just think Duke is probably a little more polished. I think Tennessee tends to struggle when they get in a tight game, kind of lose their cool a little bit. So I'm going to go with Duke to move on to the Sweet 16. And I also like Michigan to beat Arizona State and move on there. So that brings us to Kentucky and Louisville. That's a good matchup, big rivalry, Sweet 16, a lot at stake. Like I said, Louisville's playing better than anybody in the country, so I'm taking Louisville over Kentucky. And also Duke and Michigan, that's going to be a really good matchup as well. Probably won't find two better games in the Sweet 16 in any other region. But I like Louisville and I like Duke to make it to the Elite Eight.
Yeah, this region will be Indianapolis could be a potential Final Four setting with the Elite Eight going on here with all four of these teams giving you that kind of feel because Big Blue Nation travels better than any fan base in the nation. So between them and Louisville, it may be all red and blue up there. Duke and Michigan may have to try to fight for some tickets just to get into that one. But with that said, Kentucky's already beat Louisville this year at home. I think Kentucky may have clicked last week a little bit. I look to see them at least win one more game. So I look to see them actually beat Louisville to move on to that Elite Eight game. And I look to see Michigan beat Duke in the second game to bring on the Kentucky-Michigan chance to go to the Final Four, where I see Michigan beating Kentucky to move on to the Final Four. I don't think the Wildcats have been too inconsistent this year, and I don't see them winning four straight to get to the Final Four.
Well, I got Louisville and Duke in that matchup, and I just like Louisville. I think they're the hottest team in the country. I think it will be a good game, but in the end, I think it'll be a repeat of last year. Louisville advancing past Duke for a spot in the Final Four.
Should be interesting. Turn of events, each bracket we've broken down for you. We gave you our picks for the Final Four. I hope you've enjoyed it. And we'll come back to you maybe after the first weekend and see who's see where everybody's at, and maybe break down some more brackets for you. Thanks for listening.